Hello, how do you feel about being alone? Well, a lot of people don't like it very much. Apparently, I'm going to be talking about solitude for a few minutes here. Solitude is often confused with loneliness, which is perhaps why people don't think much of it. And loneliness is not the same as solitude at all. Solitude is an active choice, whereas loneliness is something which is thrust on us by social circumstances, by the situation we find ourselves in. The trouble with that is that it can become kind of self-amplifying and self-fulfilling, because if I start to feel lonely, I don't feel too good about myself, and when I don't feel good about myself, I don't feel like reaching out and breaking the cycle of loneliness. So if you suffer from loneliness from time to time, do what you can to change it to alone time, which is different. I'm going to explain that. Benefit from being by yourself, time limit it so that you get out and do something and break the cycle of loneliness and move on from there. So loneliness means that your social needs are not being met, whereas solitude is an active choice. And it's an active choice for some people because it means being alone with purpose, which is strengthening and restorative. It helps us build our personal resilience and our emotional stability. It's when we make sense of the world, when we withdraw and take a moment to ourselves. The mind does a lot, unconsciously and consciously, to start to balance things out. And equally, our physiology, our functioning in our body changes because we get some of that withdrawn time, some of that downtime. It affects the autonomic nervous system, and we benefit from that, particularly if you are in an inspiring environment of some sort, out in nature, whatever it happens to be. What gets in the way? Well, there seems to be a social stigma associated with being alone. I call it the social failure angle. Where paradoxically we're more connected than ever we were in our lives these days, and yet there's an epidemic of loneliness, we are told. As I've touched on, you can break the cycle, but you need to take active steps to do that. And by the way, if you want any more information about that, please email me or contact me by on one of the contact forms on my website, which is coming up on the screen now, and I'll do what I can to provide information which I hope will be useful to you. So there's what I call the social failure angle, but feeling lonely is not about personal failure. If you are lonely, and we all are sometimes, that's not a bad thing in itself. And don't confuse loneliness with boredom. That's yet another question. But if you are lonely, that's okay in short bursts, but don't let it go on for too long. Feeling lonely isn't a personal failure, though. It's not a judgment. It doesn't mean because you're feeling lonely or because you're cut off for some reason, whatever reason it happens to be, or set of reasons. That doesn't mean that your character is somehow in question. And feeling lonely contrasts sharply with the benefits of alone time. And in fact, you could say they're opposite sides of a coin, because the problems of loneliness are counteracted by being able to spend time alone constructively by choice and know that it's benefiting you. Alone time is not to be stigmatized. It's positive. It helps us. There's a certain wisdom in it. It helps counter the effects of stress. We all lead stressful lives these days to some extent. It helps restore mental balance. It's good for us physiologically too. It benefits mind and body because it provides time for reflection, which is always good, and it promotes emotional well-being, emotional health. So what do you do if you need to embrace solitude? Well, one, if you're one of those people who isn't very comfortable with the idea of being alone, practice being alone for a start. Short bursts. You don't have to go off on a 3-month trek through the mountains all by yourself, or even a one-day one. You can simply spend a few minutes each day being alone, reflecting. If you have trouble filling the space, then take a book with you, or practice mindfulness, take up yoga, Tai Chi, do some breathing exercises, whatever it happens to be. The reason I suggest those things is because when you engage yourself in an activity, it is easier being alone. That takes you away from the negative cycle of thinking that can creep in and tell you bad things about being alone, which are wrong, by the way. So embrace solitude by looking for alone time activities. It's useful to be in big or awe-inspiring environments, but we can't all manage that. At least a place of seclusion where you're not going to be intruded upon. It doesn't have to mean there are no people, by the way. A park's perfectly all right, or you can find solitude while you're running, swimming, or engaging in some other solo activity. But be in no doubt that actually it will benefit you and it helps restore balance. If you have trouble with the thinking intruding on you, with your thinking patterns breaking into your quiet time, then sharpen your curiosity about where you are and connect with your surroundings. Now, the reason I say this, I've touched on being curious about where you are and connecting with your surroundings. The reason I say this is because it's a way of engaging the mind and taking ourselves away from distressing thinking patterns. So, in summary, a bit of solitude helps to combat stress. It helps us reflect. It helps restore balance. It doesn't mean loneliness. It benefits our mental health generally. So learn to accept your inner wisdom. Get in touch with yourself. There's a lot of richness there, and it has a healing and beneficial effect. It should be an active process, so we need to choose to protect our alone time. And if, by the way, you are in a situation where it's not seen as being appropriate that you spend time by yourself, you probably need to sort that out first. Maybe you feel guilty about it, or maybe people around you say they don't understand why you'd want to spend time on your own. That can happen, and you maybe need to sort that out before you go into actually learning to practice solitude and derive the benefits from it. So that's it from me, over and out, and I hope this has provoked some thought in you, or you found some of it useful. You might leave a note in the comments box below, or give me the thumbs up, just say that you've liked it. Any relevant comments, I'm really happy to receive those, so let me know what you think. All the best, and over to you. Bye.